Babies, is labeling someone a form of judgment? Calling someone a cunt. So I gave myself some context here. All right. Is labeling someone a form of judgment? Calling somebody a cunt. Of course it is. Of course it's judgment. Even when you look at somebody and you go like, he's tall, you're judging his height. She's beautiful, you're judging her features. Naturally, you pick the positive side, so everyone's going to be like, oh, thank you, flattered. If you look at somebody and be like, hey, man, I don't know. I don't think there are any mean things to say. The truth shall set you free, but it'll piss you the fuck off. If I'm not mistaken, that's Jack Nicholson or John Travolta. One of them. Yeah, I'm a 90s kid. So, anyways, the truth shall set you free, it'll piss you the fuck off. But all truths, once kind of like declared by somebody, are judgments. I don't know, maybe because the truth is different than the facts. Okay, so forgetting shape. And just like I was using it for like, again, like everyone has their preference, and oh my god, how could you talk about that kind of shit? But anyway, going back to the issue at hand or the conversation at hand, labeling someone, is judgment. And we're calling somebody. See here, so here's how I actually like process things. We all experienced this. I was driving and somebody went, "Ah," and naturally our reaction, or at the very least, my reaction based on how I used to react, was to cuss them out, effectively sharing a piece of their road rage, right? Because what we're doing is we're discussing something. He basically crosses my path, I call him an asshole, and then he doesn't give a fuck. So that's basically his energy. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna drive anywhere I want. But so calling him an asshole means I labeled him that, right? And so I judged him to be an asshole. And if we take that and then we start considering the fact that the minute we're judging, the minute we're judging, we're no longer kind of like fit to feel any kind of way from what the other person does. Because when we judge another person or when we label another person, it means we stopped putting in the effort to explore more. Right? Think about it. Because what we do is we kind of like, we set a barrier around it. And it's basically coming from how we perceive things right now. That kind of like defines where we are to us, allowing us to kind of feel a bit more comfortable in it, which is the enemy. Because comfort makes you feel basically complacent, and eventually eventually you'll never get to explore the other person like that you labeled. Or you just basically start using that as a point of reference to label everyone else as well. Isn't that a beautiful road that we tend to take? I'm telling you, dude, this makes sense to me. I'm sorry I can't explain it better, or I'm still thinking out loud about it. I have a strong feeling by the time I reach video 700, I would have been able to actually, like, I would be a pro at sending my point and using, like, proper examples to get there. But to go back to the labeling part, could we discuss what gets us to label? Could we discuss what are the things that allow us to kind of like form a judgment? And I've done a lot of videos about the difference between judgment and discerning. But how would you discern when it comes to yourself? How would you detach and kind of like reflect differently when it comes to yourself? How would you enclose? Why did I use the word enclose? Because I felt like wrapping around the ego. And it's funny because like you can't see yourself from the inside, you kind of have to see yourself from the outside. So when I meant enclose, that means kind of like overpower, isolate, draw, kind of like notice. Earlier, I used an example where the ego is basically like the thickness of the wall is basically the metric that we can use for the how we notice. Because if we notice this much and I give you this much, it's a completely different skill set to actually notice this much. And as long as there's a line, as thin as it is, it's still considered the ego because that's basically how you interact with the world. Until you can, there's no line at all. So the thickness of the line is just literally like how close, how deep we are, because it extends until it can't extend anymore. And consciousness, or just something wonderful where you kind of like become a self-actualized human being that's able to see every single person exactly how they reveal themselves to him, and then basically interact and reveal themselves to them. And that's people expressing that people express themselves regardless if they're conscious about it or not. But to be able to just kind of like accept, understand, like allow all that, be as you want, and all these good all these good things that allow you to kind of like interact with life. Enclosing your ego is basically dismantling it. And so to be able to like dismantle your ego from the outside, because that's how you break the egg, right? If you kind of wanna, what came to my mind right now is like if you break an egg from the outside, it's death. You're basically like making sure the chick doesn't just will grow. But if you're breaking the egg from the inside, it's life. It's like the chick's actually picking it outside. So is there a way where we could consider? Also, I think right now there's a thinking pattern that's changing with me because I've always approached the objectively looking at myself in order to be able to see how I'm acting. It's the harder thing to do because you have to get out of yourself. And then when you get out of yourself, you have to look at how you truly are and be honest about it. It's all about honesty. So I feel right now it's kind of like, if I'm going to take a step outside, I might as well just kind of like break the ego on the way out and kind of like more boldly enter the new kind of like approach to life, the new view of reality. Because like if you're making decisions, labeling and judging, what effectively you're doing is you're kind of like contouring your scope of this world, defining your reality. And to be able to expand from the inside out, or to utilize that expansion in a way where you're able to kind of like break the actual shell or just destroy the contour, you develop a more fuck man. I always used to say self-actualization is the same as self-realization, but no, self-actualization helps you get closer to self-realization. And so it's like you either sit with yourself and then basically figure things out by yourself, or you kind of use people, because if people are around you, then that's the distraction, and then you can use them as well as feedback in order for you to come back to yourself. But if you sit by yourself, there's nothing around you, so you come back. And so in my head right now, it's like even when I'm studying, I feel like I have to explain it in order for me to kind of like understand better what I'm trying to actually do. And I still have to do it out loud. So fuck me, man. It's a whole lot of stuff. So all right, noticing that I'm labeling. In order for me to see myself objectively, I have to step out of myself. But that's effort and that's work. And that's sometimes something that you kind of like I'm using this. I called somebody and I noticed that that is a judgment. And then I was like, now I know why I don't like doing that. Or I've been trying to not be that guy that does that. I've been attempting, not trying. And so the goal behind writing this note is kind of like to point out that, hey, Tariq, you're kind of like doing something that you don't really like. And from there, I was able to realize that you have to kind of like objectively look at yourself. But the minute you're looking at yourself objectively, that means you have to go from the subjective to the objective. And who the fuck cares about the objective? Just push forward until your subjective expands. And that becomes a part of you instead of it becomes you observing it from outside. Or maybe we could actually think about it because now that I'm observing this, I'm able to, it's going to be in my head and eventually I'm going to come back to it and I'm going to take a step forward. So instead of turning back and basically labeling ourselves or judging ourselves for our actions, maybe we should just be able to connect the observation. And that alone strengthens the position that we are observing from and allows the subjective reality to expand and reach where we are. What? For whoever reaches this stage of the video, fucking badass. You are the man, you're the woman, you're the human being, you're the cosmic energy, you're badass, man. Props, much respect. Whoever reads this, man, let me know you're there. Interact with me and for the algorithm. Peace. It's a video.